Kamigawa Neon Dynasty has been on store shelves and in players' hands for a little while now, and so I think it's time we take a look at the most expensive cards from the set and what we think they'll do in the future.
Yes, Wizards of the Coast has decided to put extremely rare versions of a card that otherwise is not that remarkable into certain products, and we're going to talk about it. Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Hello and welcome to The Day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I'm Jake.
I'm Joel. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. Special shout out to our sponsor, Dragon Shield. If you shop for Dragon Shield products on the internet, use the link down in the description below. It directly helps our channel. We have got some expensive cards to talk about today, some that are kind of held up by an artificial scarcity.
But before we get into that, if you do like the video by the end, click like and subscribe. That's a great way to support the channel. There's a great community over in the Discord. If you are a fan of Jake and Joel Are Magic, click the link in the description of this video and head on over there. Let's talk about Heartless Hidetsugu versions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Here we go. So yeah, Jake, it's Hidetsugu Devouring Chaos. The Heartless one was the first printing, but I can understand why you're calling it, because honestly, this is kind of a heartless little thing they're doing here, man. It's a money-focused thing. We have got red, yellow, green, and blue versions, Jake, of this card that it's fine, but there's super rare versions, and that is making these very expensive.
Yeah, so it's speculative, but right now this is a 1% pull rate out of collector boosters. On this list right now, we're going most expensive to the least expensive of the most expensive, if you're following me. So we have red neon ink Hidetsugu here. It is no different mechanically than the baseline copy, which I think is like $1, maybe less, maybe $2. I don't know.
That is where the price reflects how good the card actually is.
Yes, but on eBay, I was just looking at this card and it was around, I saw one listing for $2,400. I saw another listing for like $1,500. Plenty of completed listings that were $1,000 or more. And then you even linked yesterday to me, you sent me a screenshot of someone at Star City that is trying to buy one of these, correct? For around $1,000 that they want to flip.
That was their buy list price of what they were offering as a bounty, but it was much higher than you would. Yeah,
$1,000.
Yeah, so like this card right now is one of the most expensive cards from any set that, you know, like at this point in the life cycle of the set. It's kind of unbelievable, but that's because they are not being pulled. That 1% estimation of collector boosters, I'm seeing a lot of chatter on the internet that it's even less than that, like maybe 1% of 1%. I'm talking very, very difficult to find these. Upwards of $1,000 for the red one. Jake, the yellow one is interesting because 10 copies of the yellow Hidetsugu Devouring Chaos Neon Ink was given to each WPN Premium store, and I don't know if you have a WPN Premium store near you, but they are kind of rare. Dear audience, I'm talking to you if they're near you. I know Jake lives in LA. There's one near him, but I'm telling you, these are arguably rarer than the red ones because you're not ever going to pull the yellow ones out of a booster in like 2 years. You know what I'm saying?
From a completionist standpoint, MTG is just an absolute nightmare. And if you don't have unlimited cash, you just have to kind of pick and choose and be okay with, you know, missing out on some stuff. Over at Jake and Joel here, FOMO, we fight FOMO. And so, you know, we like to tell you what we would buy, what we're interested in. I'm not going out and trying to get these. I know that Joel isn't. He doesn't have to say that he is. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Seer that comes out of the Secret Layers. Now, that's an interesting thing, too, because that's like a backwards version of this card, and it's numbered 1 through 100. We know there's 100 copies of this like treatment of Seer, which is really interesting. So with the green one, Joel, it's my understanding this is in collector boosters as well, and it is a grade under red, which, as a reminder, yellow does not appear in collector boosters.
Yeah, so as far as price, you've got 4 different options on these, right? Red that we saw, yellow that we saw, green, which is here, and blue, which we'll see it's a little bit cheaper than a different card in these collector boosters, and I'll show you what it is next. But this green one, yes, this is a little bit less rare than the red one, which can also be pulled from collector boosters. But the prices are interesting. Red is kind of like setting the top of the line price, you know, $1,000 here, $1,500 here. We're looking at like about half of that for the yellow ones. And then for the green ones, we're looking at about half of that. And then for the blue ones, we're looking at about half of that. So they kind of tier step down in price based on which version you get. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like Jake said, hang on, and we're going to talk at the end about where we kind of see it going. Jake, this is the 4th most expensive card in the set right now, and it's Wandering Emperor Showcase Foil Etched. This is a $200 card and only available in collector boosters. Do you think that this holds the $200 price point as one of the like gems from the set going forward? Or do you think that this hype price pulls back as more players get their hands on the base level copy that they can just play in their deck?
You know, it's really hard to tell. Flash on a Planeswalker is a pretty big deal. And then also it has this very, again, beautiful look.
Yeah.
If you had asked me, though, and I do want to say this, because I'm saying that I think the price might go down. If you had asked me when Amano Liliana first came out, right, in War of the Spark, if you had said to me, do you think that this card, which pretty much debuted at about $500, right, for that foil variant?
Yeah.
If you had said to me, hey, do you think that this is going to drop in price? I probably would have said yes to you. I think I would have said yes.
For sure.
And now I would be a fool looking back years later. So is there potential for this card to go up or go down? Absolutely. I think it could. I think it could go up more over the years. I mean, if you're saying it only appears in a collector booster,
that's
and
correct.
It's a specific variant of this card, then it not only is determined by how good the card is, but also the rarity and how difficult it is to pull. You know, if it were maybe a 3 cost, I would say, yeah, it's definitely going to be extremely expensive. But being a 4 cost walker, I don't know. There's a certain competitive level between 3 and 4 cost planeswalkers that will tap it into different formats. So I think it might be a little bit expensive.
This is one of 4 cards in the set that are sort of the tentpole cards of the set. We're going to look at the other 3 here as we go through the cards. But Wandering Emperor, honestly, if you look back a year to a set like Kaldheim or even years past, any of the showcase cards since we've had collector boosters, they debut at hype and they come back down to normal. But foil etched being only in collector boosters, it's much more desirable right now than the regular foiling treatment. So I think it's got some potential. This is the blue version of Hidetsugu. It is the 5th most expensive card that you can pull from this set. Only found in collector boosters. Like I said, it's sort of that like half of the green, which is half of the yellow, which is half of the red as far as price goes. $144 roughly, so like $150, you know, to get a copy of this. But I feel like this is one just like the rest that it's got a lower entry right now, but it might go up in price if this collector version becomes a, you know, sort of a hallmark of a time when it was starting, you know, like box toppers right before we got into collector boosters. They sort of represent the calm before the storm of this hyper collectability that's being built in.
Yeah, I think so too. And it makes me kind of wonder, you know, like, I don't know. When I'm looking at this card, I'm looking at like, you know, what for the blue one here, $144. I could buy like reserve list cards with that. And I get it. I get it. This is kind of like a pseudo reserve list. It's like a pseudo art reserve list, right? Because the red one is so freaking, like, no one's going to find it. The few people that do have it, you know, they're probably going to be able to trade it for a couple dual lands to somebody who just wants that crazy exclusive card. I'm not saying everybody with duels is going to trade them away to people for Hitsugos. That's just not going to happen. But there are going to be collectors that want that extremely scarce thing. I'm not going to say that that doesn't exist because we see it with everything. We see it with all these different fandoms. We see it with sneakers, whatever.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We're just getting to the tip of the iceberg on what they're about to do with this kind of stuff because we're seeing it on cards that aren't even that big a deal. When they start doing it on Soul Ring, I mean, it's over, dude.
Premium commanders like Atraxa. Yeah, seriously. Kenrith. Yeah, absolutely. That's when we'll pop off. Speaking of Praetors, Jake, this was our Phyrexian version in this set. This is representative of the 6th most expensive card right now. As we get down past this card, we're looking at cards that are in the like $30 to $60 range, and those are all going to sort of like bounce around and change places as far as expensiveness goes, price goes, as we get further and further into the set. But this Phyrexian foil etched version, Jake, I think people want this just to match the rest of the Praetors that have become more widely accessible over the past year or so.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this one that I will say is, and make sure to do your own research. You're going to go online and you're going to see some like Phyrexian Vorinclexes that came out of Secret Lair that are like $20. You're going to want to scroll past those. But I actually think that the price of this is pretty comparable. At this point, the Vorinclex that came out of Call Time, for example,
right,
lowest price that you can find that for in Phyrexian foil is around $116, 120 after shipping. So this is probably pretty much dead on at where I expect this card to sit, especially people that want to complete the set. So this card is probably about finding... if I had to say, if Vorinclex came out in Call Time, and we know Call Time is so far long ago, that price is probably settled into like where it wants to be, right? Oh, geez, 1 year. There's so many products. It feels like so much more time has gone by. But yeah, I feel like the price of this, at around that $116 price point, probably pretty good. Probably like not financial advice. Nothing on the channel is, but yeah,
I would have to agree with you, Jake. It's interesting because we do have multiple direct comparisons for what a Phyrexian foil card should be priced at. Whereas with Hidetsugu, some of the planeswalkers that, may have applicable play in some formats, not always necessarily in Commander, which we know is going to drive the price of these mostly. But you look at this, 7 mana, it's got a slew of text on it that's all absolutely spiky, and it's always going to have relevant play in Commander. And so these are the ones that will hold price. These would actually be, obviously I'd be jazzed to open up a Neon Ink card of the Hidetsugu. I'd be like, oh wow, that's very cool. But I know I'm going to play this card if I open it, and I know I'm going to seek out this card to try and like find... This is the first card on the list that I would want to go buy to match the rest of my set that I bought in the Secret Lair. So I think it's relevant when cards like this come out. You look at the price, Jake, I mean, that way of finding the comparable price, everybody should write that technique down, because that is exactly what you want to do to see, is a card overpriced or not. Go look at some comps. What did they settle out at? What did they debut at? What are they a year later or more? That's how you'll tell if you're getting a good deal on a Jin-Gitaxias.
Yeah, and next up, we are going to talk about Wandering Emperor Showcase.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, we have the current price of this card at around 60, but the lowest that I'm seeing this on eBay is like around 100 now. So we have this card here, which is kind of fluctuating all over the place. Again, Joel talked about this earlier, that we have a renowned artist that works on this, there's 2 different versions of the showcase, right? There's a showcase, and then there's the other showcase, and this is the other showcase. So this is very much like War of the Spark, with having, different versions of the card. Obviously we saw that ramp up in a big way in Throne of Eldraine, and ever since then it's just all history. But
with a Planeswalker, for me, it's going to depend on it finding a home where like 2 or 3 of it or more are played in the right deck, and that's got to be in a legacy, not legacy format, but an older format, legacy, modern, something like that, because I just don't think that Planeswalkers are going to find a huge home in Commander, except for niche decks that are only running Planeswalker, something like that. But every white deck, even every white deck with creatures, I'm not going to necessarily recommend you got to go pick up a copy of the Wandering Emperor. But if you're looking for a giant top-end blue creature, Jin-Gitaxias is always going to be relevant. I think, Jake, that also exact point goes to play into Tamiyo Phyrexian foil etched. This is the next card down the line in order of price at around $60 as well. You can only find this in collector boosters, where the Wandering Emperor card that we were just looking at, this one can be found in all boosters. This is the non-foil, just
non-foil.
showcase treatment.
Yeah, the one that is not in collector boosters, the one that is not foil etched, the one that you're looking at right here,
right? This
can be found everywhere, and so I do think that there might be room for the price to settle out around like 50s or 60s, and it probably isn't worth it to be FOMO buying around 100. This to me, I'll just be completely honest, there's too much text that I just have no idea what it is.
I
So
got
I
you.
do think that this is collectible. I think that there are going to be people that want it.
Which is reflected
I
in the
wouldn't hate
$60
having
price
it.
tag. Exactly. And that's it. Yeah, it kind of matches, but the fact that it's a Planeswalker and just at a base level, Planeswalkers don't play great in Commander. That is why I think this and its foil etch, which is what we're looking at right now. I know it's hard to tell the foiling, but Tamiyo Phyrexian foil etched around $60 is about half the price of your Jin-Gitaxias Phyrexian foil etched, which are your 2 Phyrexian cards in this set. And I think that is because, number one, it hasn't really found a home yet in a standard deck or anything older. 5 mana is tough for an older format anyway, even though you can pay 2 life as part of the casting cost there to reduce it to 4. It's got to be a banger walker if it's a 4 mana walker anyway. It's like Jake was saying about Wandering Emperor. And so that disparity in power level between 3 and 4 is probably why it hasn't found a home yet. And I think the playability of it in Commander is what reflects that half price. However, collector booster only. This is the foil etched version. Jake, I think you're 100% right that this is a pure collector's play, not so much a gameplay play, because can you read this?
Yeah, and I wouldn't have to look it up and hand it to people at the table because no one these days is going to learn it and memorize it. So, I think that a cool, alter sleeve kind of company will probably figure out a way to make an undersleeve that slips over this so that you can play this if you want to, but
or the opposite direction, get a base level and get a slip over that's the Phyrexian thing, so you can just kind of slide it off and actually read the card.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, this is it's interesting, but again, I'm not super interested in it.
Yeah, and it's the kind of card, these showcase frames, these Phyrexian frames, these are the kind that go down in price. Jake, we're at that like $50 or less version. We've got 5 cards left of our most expensive list. This is our Ninja frame here. This is the last also one that is in collector boosters only. The other 4 cards that we've got are available in every single type of booster that you can open. But, big name character, around $50. This was kind of one of the major tent poles like I was talking about as far as characters go of the whole set.
Yeah, and again, this is the kind of thing where this could go either way. This is one of those cards where it's $50 now. It's just a different variant of a card that you can acquire for much less. So it's kind of it like we say with Secret Lair products. It really is up to you whether or not you think it's worth it. This is around the $50 range.
Unless this takes off in Legacy, I think, not financial advice, that this price goes down. It is foil etched. We'll see over time if consumer confidence gives foil etched a leg up on regular foil cards, but at around $50, even though it's only collector boosters and it's foil etched, showcase, the art is dope, great artist, it's got to find a home in a deck because a lot of commander decks aren't going to run three cost planeswalkers.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, a lot of products have had foil etched cards in them. It's not like they're not good quality cards. Oftentimes they are not curled or anything like that. But a lot of the legends from Commander Legends, they debuted for what this is worth. A lot of those legends debuted at high prices and then bottomed out. Like, there's people that are chasing certain cards. The rarity on this might be different. This is a different kind of art as well. So it's going to have some collectors that do want it.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. We can kind of bounce past this one. This is the base copy of Jin-Gitaxias Phyrexian version. It's around $40 right now. This one, if you go 1 year back and look at a set that had Phyrexian cards, Kaldheim, the showcase version of Vorinclex is around $30 in that set. And so do I think the $40 price tag will hold? I think it's going to go down a little bit more as more and more of this is opened, because Jake, this one, like all the rest of the other cards, are available in all boosters.
Right. Yeah. And so for these next ones, I do think that we're still in a little bit of the hype wave of, we're not at New Capenna yet. We're on the way. But yeah, I mean, I'm even looking at some completed listings recently for Vorinclex that are around 20 to 25.
In that showcase version.
In that showcase version, non-foil again, just make sure that non-foil. Yeah, just something to consider. Just don't go out and FOMO out and buy this stuff. There's all these different variants all the time.
This is the most expensive version of the new Kodama of the West Tree from the set. This is the Neon Glow Showcase. Available in all boosters, currently around $35. This is one that between $25 and $35, I think is actually where it will land. I've played with this card. Modifications include counters on cards. It doesn't have to just be equipment or auras, and there's a lot of cards that have +1/+1 counters as part of their text. And so when those creatures are dealing combat damage, you're getting to thin out your deck, ramp your land base. This is the kind of card at 3 mana that I could see being a playable green card in Commander going forward. And so having this showcase version of it, I could see this being desirable over time and really holding around 30s.
Yeah, if you go wide with this card and then you're able to just like smack in with the team, you can filter out your deck in a big way. Just go grab every single basic that's in there. And that's just from the thought of Commander, you know, where not a lot of basics are ran. You know, unless you're playing budget, there aren't a lot of basics, but thinning out your deck in that way, or in Constructed, being able to grab basics out. This card is a must answer, in my opinion. It's just very powerful. That reach, a lot of people, you know, they don't think about reach, but reach is very relevant as well. That's blocking a lot of the air stuff that people are dealing with. Yeah, strong card.
Absolutely.
And then Boseiju, which needs no introduction. The channel lands are pretty sweet.
I wanted to make sure that we got far enough down the list in order of expensive cards in the set to talk about at least one of the versions of Boseiju, because this card is going to be around, in my opinion, until the end of time. And so this is always going to be a card that players want. You can open this one in all boosters, this borderless version of it. 30s, I think, is a really good price for this, y'all. Not financial advice, but I would be trying to grab these if you want this treatment of it. I'd be trying to grab these in the next 5 to 6 months, because 2 years from now, I think we'll be talking about it, Jake, in one of our let's wait for a show, you know, some kind of secret layer reprint on these if you didn't get them during Neon Dynasty. This is the only one that I would say I'm a little FOMO'd to try and make sure that I get a copy of, because I want it in my Commander binder, you know?
Yeah, and this one right here, I see this version selling for, honestly, like right now around like, for the foil, around like $70.
Yeah.
So like this is a pretty high price tag on this one. And then this is also the alternate art too. So that's its whole other thing, a whole other thing. And then you have the regular version of Boseiju, and then the extended version of the regular version. There's just so many variants these days.
Yeah. The last variant that we do want to talk about is the other variant of Jin-Gitaxias. This is the 13th most expensive card in the set, but after this, we start getting into, I think the next card is the base level version of Boseiju, which is still in that mid to high 20s. So we went as far as this one for the video. But yeah, it's another treatment of a fantastic card. This one's legible for all players that don't know the card. It's a cool neon, you know, glow, I think is what they called this one. Or low 30s right now for the not soft glow. Yeah, that's right. Right. Low 30s right now for this one. I think that this one is in the same camp, however, as the Vorinclexes from Kaldheim, where instead of the, you know, the runic sort of Nordic frame that we got for that one, we got soft glow from Neon Dynasty. And so I do think that this card will be mid to low 20s before it's all said and done. And this would be a very acquirable copy for your Commander deck.
Yeah. And we talked about a lot of cards today, and we didn't really get to any baseline versions. There's just so many versions of cards. Yeah. You know, you got to let us know. What did you think of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty? What do you think of all these new variants? Because this is a big step in a weird direction, especially with all those Heartless Hidetsugos that we talked about earlier. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Hidetsugu Devouring Chaos, which is the talked about in the beginning, which is a card that's fine. It's a card that's whatever. But what's going to happen when WotC decides to do this with a card that people care about? Say they do it with Soul Ring, Arcane Signet.
Yeah, and you're even aiming, dude, you're aiming at the top of the lists, bro. Like, what if this Neon Ink 4 different versions thing had just been a way that they did Jin-Gitaxias from this set? I think that even then, we're not looking at a card that's $1,000, $1,500. We're looking at a card that's multiple thousands of dollars.
Because, or what if they'd done it with Boseiju? What if they had made that land? They're
dude.
like, people are going to love this green land. Let's do this in 5 different versions. Shock lands, fetch lands. You know, there are so many different cards that they can do this with. They picked a card that's kind of random. And I'm sure it's just a test.
If you liked the video at all, hit us with a like, hit us with a subscribe. If you have a suggestion for this most expensive series, this is a new thing we're exploring, let us know down in the comments below. We like to build these series alongside y'all. Also, hey, if you are planning to buy any of these cards on TCG Player, go through the link in the description below. That directly helps our channel and helps us grow.
Yes, let us know in the comments. And until the next time that we see you, take care of yourself.